Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for another spoiler review. Like I said, I was only covering 3 movies for the month of Mother's Day to keep up with the theme. I didn't want to neglect that because I know I'm still going through all the X-Men related content that I'll be like covering for foreseeable weeks because I did a lot up until I did a lot for Spider-Man related content up until the point of the Spider-Verse event, just to prepare myself before the movie comes out, which literally will be less than a month from now. But then I was so like eager to get started on X-Men related content, and I'll be covering like individual stuff, short individual stuff. Then later the team up stuff and iconic stories like Phoenix Saga, Onslaught, Days of Future Past. Then like eventually I'll be wrapping up with the biggest X-Men event that started like a whole new status quo with the X-Men, House of X and Powers of X. And that'll be like the totality after I cover all the TV shows, comics, and the movies. And House of X and Powers of X will be like, the wrap up with all the X-Men stuff. Not that I'm going to stop doing X-Men related stuff after that point. It's just that I want to do a good portion, and then in some point in the future I want to cover like a particular X-Men related thing. I'll just jump right into it. But anyway, I'm covering Mary Poppins Returns, this long-awaited sequel to the original 1964 Mary Poppins, which I just finished covering, which by this point you should be able to see it on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkative if you're watching this in the future. I haven't posted it just yet. But I also covered the J-Lo film Monster-in-Law. So those were the only 3 Mother's Day movie content I'll be doing for this year. I'll be getting back to the swing of things of that theme month next year. So don't worry. I just want to make sure that I get through X-Men stuff fairly quickly. Anyway, I don't want to go off into the preamble about the author and her issues with Disney. I mentioned it in my Saving Mr. Banks biopic review and the 1964 Mary Poppins movie. So you can watch those so you can get my overall thoughts on that relationship. So I want to get right into the movie. So it stars Emily Blunt as Mary Poppins, previously held by Julie Andrews, who was cast in the original film. Then I did not even know this until, because this is the first time I'm even watching Mary Poppins Returns. I never really gone out of my way to see the film because it came out in 2018, and I'm like, I'm not a huge Mary Poppins type of person. Matter of fact, the last time I watched the original Mary Poppins, I was like a little kid and I was watching it on the VHS tape at the time. That's how long ago it was. But, now that I'm older, I can understand like the nuances of like the adults and what they're going through along with the kids and appreciating what's in it. But, where I was going with this. Oh. Well, yeah, this is Mary Poppins Returns, the first time me even get on my way to actually watching it. So I'll give my thoughts on the film by the end of the review. But we got Lin-Manuel Miranda, of course, Hamilton guy. I reviewed Tick Tick Boom, which he directed and did the musical numbers and everything like that. Starring Andrew Garfield. That review is up on my channel right now, so you can check out my thoughts on that. But yeah, he's taking the place of Dick Van Dyke's original position as because he's the former apprentice of Bert, who was Dick Van Dyke's character. And you think Dick Van Dyke's Cockney accent was a little cringy? Like, I feel that way with Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's a Puerto Rican, I think. He's doing like a Cockney accent, and it's not like, there aren't Puerto Ricans in London, but I don't know. Yeah, the guy kind of seems like, I got no problem with Lin-Manuel, but it's just like, I don't know, he just seems like all over the place for no apparent reason. It's like, you need like a good musical number, like let's get Lin-Manuel Miranda, the Hamilton guy. We gotta have Hamilton guy in our stuff. Of course, I think this is probably prior to even him doing Hamilton, I think. At least I think. I don't know. I actually never even watched Hamilton. I know everybody and their mama watch Hamilton. I got Disney Plus, can watch Hamilton as much as I want to, but I just don't. This is one of those things that people kept harping on how great it is, and it's like, it's weird because like, unlike Spider-Verse or Spider-Man No Way Home or Infinity War Endgame or the Joker movie or Terminator 2 or whatever, like everybody gotta say like, oh, you gotta watch this, it's great. And it's like sometimes the hype is real, and but it's just like sometimes you just like, God, like, why bother? I'm pretty much heard about how great it is. There's no point for me in watching it. I'm pretty sure it is. I don't just relatively care. We got Ben Whishaw as Michael Banks, who was the former young kid from the original movie grown up, as well as his sister Jane Banks, now being played by Ellamy Mortimer. Julie Waters as Ellen, the housekeeper. And matter of fact, Karen Dutris, who played the former young Jane Banks in the original film, has like a small cameo appearance in this. If you watch this movie, there's this woman who's given the older Jane directions. That is the actual actress who played the young Jane from the original film growing up. It's a little fun fact. We got Nathaniel Saleh plays the oldest Banks child, Pixie Davis as the middle child, Annabelle Banks, and Joel Dawson as young Georgie Banks. Then you got Colin Firth as William Weatherall Wilkins, the chairman of the Fidelity Fiduciary Bank, and the nephew of Mr. Dawes Jr. Mel Streep as Topsy, Mary Poppins' Eastern European cousin. Pretty much like acting very Romani in my opinion, but whatever. Anyway, that's pretty much like, the major players. But I'm too curious. It's like, the children should be like it looks like the two oldest children are still acting. The youngest one doesn't seem to be doing anything else. Anyway, this is set 25 years into the future from the time of the original film. And because I was swear, because when this movie was announced, I thought it was set in like present day or something like that, like a revamp or something. Once I did a deep dive, I realized, oh no, this is like both films set is like pre-World Wars, which is kind of funny. Although during this period, of the second film is around the time of the Great Depression. So everybody's on a bit of hardships. And as I stated in my review for the original Mary Poppins, there's a lot of scenes that seem like shot for shot from what happens here, and it seems like kind of a slight downgrade in the sequel, where it's like the step in time stuff from the original film. You got like a version of that, because you know they're like chimney cleaners in the original. Here now it's 25 years later, they're more lamp lighters. And while the step in time seems, man, it's like everything seems so lively. Not to say this didn't have any lively moments, but it's just like it's like discount version of what you have originally. You know, this is Disney we're talking about. They're like, this is one of the earliest stuff where they do these Disney live action remakes, or just remakes in general, and most often than not they seem hollow. Not as hollow as like the live action Lion King. This was still pretty good, but I don't know, their version of step in time here seems like almost everything seems like a stage play here, rather than what we got in the original film. And it seems like, I don't know, like what's this high school BS that we're watching? I don't know, because if you look at the step in time, you actually feel like you're on top of the rooftops. It's like the way like everything was set up. You really feel like you're in it. It's less so here. But I gotta hand it to Emily Blunt. She, like, I don't give like I'm watched stuff with Emily Blunt in it before, but she never really like stood out for me like oh my god, like Scarlett. I mean, she should be up there like with Scarlett Johansson, but Scarlett Johansson, you know, it's like, I don't know, it's just, how many of you like go out there like, oh, I gotta go see this Emily Blunt film? It just doesn't ring the same as something like a Scarlett Johansson or a not that you're comparing women or anything like that, but it's just like, you know, like that like, you know, crap, what's the other good like example? I'm trying to crap, the lady who played Maleficent, I'm blanking her doggone, Angelina Jolie. It's like, oh, I gotta go see that Angelina Jolie film kind of thing. It rings different in your head, you know? Not that Emily Blunt isn't a good actress, it's just like she didn't have that kind of, even though she's like the star of this film, this didn't, I won't say it didn't catapult her. She still works and obviously does a lot of good stuff since then. I know I've seen her in stuff, but it's just that it didn't do what, like, I don't know. It's kind of like, I attribute it to this. Did you know anything about Chris Hemsworth prior to Thor? Sure, he wasn't like, you know, what was that, Cabin in the Woods or something like that, as some kind of teen or whatever, but you know, he really did not like that didn't catapult him until into stardom, until like, you know, you get into like a Thor thing. Not that you need to be in a Marvel film just to be like a booming thing that has to be put in everything, but it's just that, I don't know, it's just like, maybe just me. It's like, you know, Emily Blunt just isn't like on my radar like that. Maybe she is with you, but it's just like, you know, she's just been like a fine actress that I do enjoy time to time whenever I see her in something. But she is like a huge standout in this film, and she really plays the role of Mary Poppins very well. Not to take away from anything with Julie Andrews. Julie Andrews is still like top notch in terms of performance of Mary Poppins, but Emily Blunt seems to like carry that torch very well, but also make it her own. It's kind of like the same way with everybody who ever played like Batman or the Joker. they carried that torch, but they made it their own way. Whether you liked it or not, they did their own thing with it. And I think Emily Blunt, did that exact same thing with Mary Poppins. And it almost seems like, almost like a twist, like some kind of twisted, like, because it's supposed to be like, kind of like I want to say harsher tone to Mary Poppins, but it's like, she can get like I don't know, it just seems like, very more stern in a way here and there. But there was funny reactions from her where like she was, she and the kids was right on top of oh yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda plays Jack. I didn't even bring up the actor's character's name. Jack's like, bike to carry them to Michael's office, and the youngest kid asks like, "How much you weigh, Mary Poppins?" And she gives her reaction like, this little boy. I was like, wow, the kids have no filter. That was probably like the biggest laugh I got from that. And that was another one that's kind of escaping me, but it was like two things with her. But yeah, she's doing her own thing with Mary Poppins, and I really, really do enjoy it. But unlike in the previous film, there's gonna be some compare and contrast. I can't help it. But the previous film, I liked a lot of the actors involved in that film, but Dick Van Dyke and Julie Andrews were the standouts for me. Here, everybody's doing their job, but only Emily Blunt, to me, is the only standout, in my opinion. Sure, everybody else is talented just as much, but it's just like, I don't know, there's something that Emily Blunt was delivering that's kind of because she's Mary Poppins, she's like almost the focus. But it's just every time she's on screen, you are paying attention. Everything else seems like, and don't get me started on the songs. As I mentioned in the previous review of the original, all the songs there are super catchy and you remember them. The songs here go in one ear and out the other from me. Unless you grew up as a little kid in 2018 watching Mary Poppins Returns, I'm pretty sure you guys might be humming, their tunes, because they did win awards here and there from this film, so it got its accolades. But it's just that, I don't know, it's just, I remember Step in Time, Chim Chim Chimmery, Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, Spoonful of Sugar. Like, I remember those, or at least remember the tunes. I cannot hum a lick of any of the songs here. I hold a gun to my head, I cannot do it. I'm sorry. It's just like, not that they wasn't trying, it's just like, it just wasn't catchy. It wasn't at least catchy to me. Anyway, now that the Banks children are older, the son inherited the house from the parents. He has 3 children of his own. It was just a year ago the mom passed, because Disney loves those. And the mom, it's kind of funny, like, it's like the kids took on the personas, or like the almost archetypes of their parents. Whereas, like, the mom was fighting for the women's rights, and now the daughter seems to be almost on the same kind of pathway, but instead of women's rights, it's more so of the disenfranchised kind of situation. Union organizer, that's her thing. But the son is like more so into art, which, given the fact that in the original film, I remember him like, drawing here and there, but it wasn't like the forefront. But since the fact that Art doesn't pay the bills, he has to work at his bank so that way he can still take care of his family. And clearly everybody's still reeling from the death of the mother. They all pretty much put on a brave face for each other. People like Mark, like there's moments here when like Mary Poppins comes in and it's like looking after the children. Of course, obviously means like the older Banks children, because the kids here, unlike when Michael and Jane when they were kids, there was slightly more rambunctious, but not like wild and petulant children. They're just like very adventurous and imaginative, and they tend to wander off because they got like wild curiosities. Here these kids was already kind of, maybe because the mother passed, they gotta be a little bit more adult, so they seem very much well mannered. Maybe aside from the youngest kid, it seems a little bit more adventurous and tends to wander off a little bit more. These kids like make sure like, oh, let me put that coat up for you, father. Let me go to the grocery store for you, father. I'm gonna call the plumber for you, father. And it's like very adult things, and it's like, what's the point of having Mary Poppins to look after these little children, because they seem very well behaved. They seem a little bit more uptight. I mean, that's the whole point. Maybe have the kids less uptight. It's kind of like pulling the reverse from what happened with the original film, where the Banks father was more uptight, that needs to loosen up, and teaching the kids how to be a little bit more responsible. Whereas kind of like a flip effect here, where the kids need to be less uptight, and the dad try to get things together, because he's trying, but it's just like he haven't really truly dealt with the grief of his late wife. And he had later on in the film, he has some kind of like, not breakdown, but it's all running together on him after the whole situation at the bank, which is like very tit for tat from scene to scene from what you see from the original film. They didn't even try to do anything. I won't say not doing anything different, but it seems like you're playing the same beats, literally scene for scene, that almost run the exact same moments. Like, as I mentioned in the previous film, in my review of that, it's just like when Mary Poppins comes swooping in the first act, it's only 3 minutes apart. You can time it scene for scene, only 3 minutes apart from when both old and new Mary Poppins come in the first act. Is very eerie. It's like I said, like you kind of like could at least have new Mary Poppins show up maybe 10 minutes earlier, or or something like that. Or of course the whole Step in Time, their own version of Step in Time. Don't even know what you call their version of it, but they could have done something extremely different instead of being lamplighters, but you gotta do something familiar to the people. But anyway, they're in danger of getting the house repossessed because of loans that hasn't been paid off for 3 months, and now they have to look for these paperwork from left by their father. They can't. They're like the certificate they need to look for, that is they think is among their father's like inventory somewhere in the attic or something, but they can't seem to find it. Then when the kids go off, try to go for grocery shopping, then like the kite gets there's this kite that Michael found, their old kite that he tossed away, and it blows off in a mysterious breeze. Kids find it in the park. It gets picked up by Mary Poppins, and then she comes right back to the house, and these old kids are looking like, oh my god, Mary Poppins, is that you? And I love the line because like Emily Blunt really like, like really portrays Julie Andrews kind of aesthetic, like Michael was still another codfish, and he just like right on cue like closes his mouth, and then like the whole giggle thing with Jane is like, that part is like, okay, like very very good. I really like that. um but of course Mary Poppins not really here for the kids per se, but more so for the adults, and she's playing matchmaker to uh Jack and Jane just now caught on to that. um because apparently he had like a thing for her while they was growing up. uh and then of course trying to get Michael's life back on track. So uh you get his moments when like, very cool depictions with like the underwater shots, when doing the bath time thing. Like she totally, you would swear for a split second like Mary Poppins just drowned these kids in this bathtub. But they're transported into the underwater world, pretty much Pirates of the Caribbean kind of stick, and do their little song number. And then uh uh because like right on cue, because like the adult kids wonder like, you think all the stuff that we did as kids, did it really happen with Mary Poppins? And of course, you know as Mary Poppins mentioned later in the film, like, as they get older they tend to forget. That old chestnut can have like these kids remembered all the magical stuff that happens. You gotta do that whole Man in Black neuralizer thing where like, oh, they just, not literally, but it's like, oh, like after she leaves, like all that whimsical stuff just goes away. It's the same kind of thing when I did my review on The Preacher's Wife back around last Christmas, where like after the deed is done, you know, you know, all the adults forget who I was, kind of situation. Um, so what else happened? Uh, uh, the kids are fully aware that they're in danger of losing their childhood home. That's been in their family for at least a couple of generations at this point, and they had this ceramic bowl, or at least I think it's ceramic, with this like kind of very elaborate painting on it that was left by their mother, who said it was like priceless. The two older children had this idea about, oh, like we can sell this, and then it'll probably give us enough money to help pay off the loan so we can keep our house. The youngest one doesn't understand the gravity. Oh, he understands, but it's like he sees this as a cherished heirloom, and he doesn't understand why they think about selling it being good. But he just sees it as, no, that's mom's, don't do it, and then ends up breaking like a handle off or chipping it a bit. So for some reason, because while Jack was talking with Mary Poppins, who then just waltzed on in because he was on a ladder, and he just talking with uh Mary, and he just waltzed on in along with Mary Poppins and the kids. Like, what is? Yeah, sure. He might know uh the father and the aunt, but not well enough to, you can just waltz on in. You don't even just waltz on in just willy nilly anyway. Especially probably tracking in dirt and all kinds of grime. And of course, they all just do the animation portion of the Mary Poppins part, and they jump into the bowl, and they go to this kind of like what you call it, the this music hall. And of course, you get this weird moment with this wolf and his two henchmen, very Pinocchio style type of goons. It's like, don't get me started on the so-called villains of this piece, because unlike the original Mary Poppins, there's no real villain. Even with the bankers who were trying to fire George Banks in the first film, they weren't, real villains. They're just like adults that saw this kind of commotion that carried on, that Joe, that put their business in danger, decided like, gotta cut you loose because you was all the shenanigans that carried on. So it wasn't really a real villain, which I tend to appreciate in certain films, especially kids films, like something like Moana. There's not really a villain in that. This is probably one grudge I got against Frozen, because the first Frozen movie, because that weird prince guy had to be some kind of secret villain. And it's like, why did we need him to be a villain again? There's no reason. And so it's like, typically in kids films, like, more often than not, you don't really need like a villain. You just have like an obstacle and a journey, and the character trying to overcome that obstacle to get to the end of that journey. Because the Colin Firth character, who's like the new owner of the bank and Michael's boss, turns out to be like a villain who got some weird hard on seizing the house of the Bankses. Never explained, at the very least, why he need to get their house. There was no urgency for it. There's no need for it, unless some kind of bars of gold they're secretly tucked away in a cellar somewhere that he only one knows about, or something like that. That could at least give some understanding of why he wants to get them out of the house, but that's not the case. So that's just plain old weird. I could have taken that out. Doesn't change much with the film. But once they get out of the bowl, after Lin-Manuel Miranda does his Hamilton thing, get out of the bowl, and once again, Mary Poppins like to gaslight people and tell them like what they saw wasn't really there. And it's like, what is it that you don't want them to know about your magic powers? Like, even if they tell somebody, who's gonna believe them? They could have just been like kept secret with certain people in your charge, like the Banks family. They see all this whimsical stuff and they just keep them to themselves, and just annoying. It's like knowing there's a Santa Claus kind of situation, and just keep that part to themselves, as like I saw this magic and stuff like that, and we'll just keep it to ourselves because no one's gonna believe us anyway. One day, Michael's on his way to work. He's forgetting his briefcase. Mary Poppins decides to, well, before we get to that, Mary decides to go to her cousin. This clearly Romanian type of dialogue that, I won't say clearly, I don't know 100%. It says Eastern European. I like to think Romani falls in that category because the tone sounds very Romani. And it's like, I don't know, because it's Meryl Streep, I guess she managed to have that kind of plot armor in real life, where it's like, certain things that anybody else try to do would get flack for it, but since it's Meryl Streep, less so. I doubt she'll be able to pull that kind of thing this day and age, but she just narrowly escaped that in 2018. So after the whole topsy-turvy song, which is pretty much trying to do the whole laughing on the ceiling while having tea time in the original one, which once again a little bit more memorable than this scene, even though you try to do the same gist of it. So while that is getting fixed, because it never explained why, all of a sudden, like, Mary Poppins has some kind of cousin. Is her whole family just magic? Is it something like Encanto, where it's like a whole family's full of magic people, and they go off do good deeds in the world? We need like a Mary Poppins origin story. That's what we need. Instead of like Mary Poppins Returns, we should have like the origin of Mary Poppins, and see how this, apparently the family got these magic powers. Because the killer ain't just Mary Poppins. If she has a cousin, what's up with her parents, and she has her siblings or aunts, uncles, like, like, what's going on? Did she have like a secret kid? Well, that's probably more so like in the future or something like that. But it's like, because you can totally tell that her and Burke kind of did the nasty at some point, because clearly they was on a obvious date and they was feeling each other in the first movie. But Michael was late for work, and Mary Poppins offered to, while they was on their way to the grocery store, decide to stop off first at Michael's job at the bank to hand deliver his briefcase. And of course, the kids decide to sneak off. Clearly, Mary Poppins know they're sneaking off, but it's like, you're clearly watching these kids and you trying to like get them to, go out on their own terms to deal with the situation at hand with their father, and because clearly you know what's going on, and because you freaking omnipotent or something. But I don't know, it's just like, if you're that omnipotent, like, just tell Michael what's up. But the kids over here about what's his name, Wilkins's plan of seizing their house, and clearly not intending on giving it up or extending their time. So they try to go tell the dad. He, of course, that old chestnut, doesn't believe the children, and so eventually, they had this kind of like, it's part of the, kind of slows down the movie for me, where they had this little weird song these kids are saying, that's, I won't say weird, but it's like, I kind of like groaned a bit, because like, these songs are really not like, maybe they're just not my cup of tea or not my speed or something like that, because like, because it kind of reminds me, unfortunately, the two boys in WandaVision, they try to do that little sing song out of freaking nowhere to their mother, who was possessed by a different version of her mother, and it was so cringy. And this kind of reminds me of that for some reason. It just bring me back to that moment, because it's after like the father had this blow up, and he's like, all that feelings that he's pretty much kind of like kept, I won't say bubbled up, but just haven't really processed properly from the death of his wife just a year ago, all came rushing back, because now he doesn't have his wife, who's usually been like his rock, who's usually handles the finances. That's typically a thing, because only one parent can handle the finances, or at least when you're doing things like that, that old little cliche, it behooves them, because I'm not like super like business savvy or finance savvy, but if my girlfriend or wife is, it would be kind of cool if I at least get like the fundamentals from her, so in case something happens, I'm not up S Creek without a paddle, that I can at least keep my head above water kind of situation. It seems kind of like, I'm thinking in terms of like, backup plans with a backup plan, just to, because I like to more often not like contingency plans, so that way I don't like to get caught off guard more often than I like to, because you can't plan for everything, but I at least want to minimize surprises. So the children, the father reconcile and everything like that, because he probably shouldn't have snapped on them like that. But as they're like about to, uh, they pretty much all packed up, then the youngest boy got the old kite, and then realized after he did more patch ups on the doggone thing, the boy patched it up with, a piece of paper that he was cutting up, or at least the father drew on, not realizing, or at least realizing now that, oh, this is the paper that I need, the certificate that I was looking for. So now they got to rush to the bank to deliver it in order to be able to keep the house, because they had like 5 days by, to the 5th day on midnight. It was very limited. And of course they got Jack's little lamplighter companions who are trying to lead the way to the Big Ben to try to move the clock backwards, or at least stall for time. And they do this little piling up all the ladders just to get to the top, and he shut off the light but couldn't move the, why is there no mechanism in the thing he can reach, or ladder to reach the tallest part to move the hands on the Big Ben. But Mary Poppins, who can fly, can't go up there by herself and just move the clock herself, rather than going through this rigmarole of them piling up Cirque du Soleil ladders. That's probably the most ignorant part of this entire scene, my personal opinion. But Michael and Jane managed to make it inside the building despite Wilkins's efforts. And of course they putting it all together and they're only missing one piece, and Wilkins like, oh well, too late. And then you got like a good guest cameo of Dick Van Dyke, who's taking out the role of the what's his name, Mr. Dawes Jr., and outs his own nephew for being corrupt, pretty much. Like I said, we didn't need him as like a villain. What is the point? Just stick with the oh, you got a deadline, you can't extend it any further than we already did, and you found it, you made it in time, and it's like, oh, you get to keep your house. Boom. That's all the tension you really need. You don't need like an overall bad guy wringing his hands saying like, their house is mine. Why you need his house? Maybe aside from the other suggestion I had about like maybe there's bars of gold underneath this house that they don't know about, that he does, that he wants to get his hands on. Another suggestion, if you want him to be like a villain to the Banks family, maybe he's seeking like retribution for having their father, causing the death of his great uncle, because he made him laugh himself to death in the previous film. That could have helped at least give you a reason for a surprise bad guy, but they didn't do that, and just out of nowhere. Anyway, managed to keep the house. They're going flying balloons, and they're lifting up off the ground like they're freaking Pennywise, which I argue Mary Poppins could be scarier. But now that all is well, Mary Poppins is going to be on her way. Jane and Jack, seems to be starting some kind of relationship. Whoa, don't really care. And the movie ends. It's still a good movie, but it doesn't rise to the same level as the original. I know it sounds very cliche to say, but if you're watching this, especially since I watched these movies back to back, and Mary Poppins Returns is my first time watching this, I can say like, man, it's like I've seen the original Mary Poppins maybe a few times in my life, and and it's been years, and I rewatched it after all this time now, and it's still a lot of moments that really come back to me, and it's still like I haven't missed a beat with it. Here it's like I said, like the songs, it's one in after the other. The only biggest praise I gotta give this movie is the Emily Blunt's performance. It's not like the other actors are bad, but just like Emily Blunt's only the good standout to me. She really encapsulate the ethos of Mary Poppins. Uh, I gotta give Lin-Manuel Miranda some credit. He pulled off a goofy, cringy Cockney accent as much as Different Dyke did. Speaking of which, Different Dyke, I take it back. Different Dyke here still is a highlight. Him and Emily Blunt, like him and Julie Andrews, were the biggest standouts to me because despite his age, because he's like 90, I think, right now, he fairly still very animated and active, you know, and it's gonna be like so sad when that guy eventually passed away because he is just like a bowl full of joy, you know. Dick Van Dyke is just just like a treasure and just seems like a joy to be around. And it's like the same thing I feel about how like Keanu Reeves. It's like there's certain people just good people to be around. Henry Winkler, the Fonz, another person, seems like such a lovely person just to be around. Just no issues ever in his life kind of situation. He just seems like just like a joy. But yeah, that is my review on Mary Poppins Returns. It's not bad, but it's just like, I don't know, it's like one of those movies where it seems like these are good examples of the original one. Is like it might be a kids film, but it's a kids film that you get sucked in, and the music is like more on point, like the because like each scene is so animated, and not even just with the cartoonist stuff. It's just like the movements, like the guy next door neighbor shooting off his cannon, and like the original movie, like everybody's like timing it just right to catch everything, and like you bump the wall just to get the pictures uncrooked. Here they do the exact same thing, and it seems kind of dull, and it's not as colorful as the original. And I don't think it gets super colorful until like the tail end, and beyond that it's just like Mary Poppins clothes. But it just, the original seems like it got more substance in a way, if I can use any word at all, that you can, and this sequel seems like, oh, it's a good 2-hour film just to put your kids in front of, where it's harmless and you don't really have to worry about them for a couple of hours kind of situation. It's that kind of thing. I know people use that as an example a lot for some things, but some things are kind of like an apt example of that kind of description. It's just it's harmless kind of fun movie that you have you can put your kids in front of, and doesn't have much, I don't want to say have any substance, but it's not much substance where you can have your kids coming out of it thinking. But anyway, that is it for the Mother's Day movie month reviews. I know it's very light this year because like I said, I'm covering a lot of X-Men related content, which, by the way, my next reviews will be comic book reviews. One of the limited series with Rogue, and another limited for Storm. So look forward to that in a couple of days. After which it'll be like more like X-Men movies down the line, which the next ones will be Wolverine, like films like X-Men's Origins Wolverine, The Wolverine, and then Logan. Then back to the X-Men teams soon after. But anyway, I was planning on getting back to more Jedi Survivor, but I'm just going to have to wait until tomorrow to do that, because I got to do some quick auditions really quick for some more voiceover stuff, and yeah, and probably get something to eat afterwards. It's been a long day. I was getting kind of sleepy, and I didn't want to nod off in the middle of my reviews. Anyway, enough preamble. Leave a comment below if you're watching this on YouTube. Let me know what you thought of the Mary Poppins films, the original and the long sequel. What was your favorites? What was your dislikes? All that stuff. Follow me, links in the description below. Of course, I'm 14 subscribers away from reaching my 400 subscriber goal. And once again, once I reach the 400 subscriber goal, I will be doing a Hot Ones challenge video in celebration and answering 10 questions from you guys via selected, outlets from the links. And yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow for more Jedi Survivor. Have a good night. Have a happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there. Take care.